Hello, friends. You're watching The Night Watchman, where every day you'll hear a brand new horror story that will send chills down your spine. But to keep bringing you these terrifying tales, we need your love and support. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Now let's begin the story. I never believed a place as professional and polished as a Bank of America branch could hide something terrifying, something ancient, something hungry. But the night I agreed to take the closing shift, I learned that horror doesn't need dark forests or abandoned buildings. Sometimes it waits behind glass doors under fluorescent lights in the places we trust the most. My name is Evan Reeves, 27 years old, Assistant Branch Manager at the Bank of America off Hawthorne Avenue, Charlotte, North Carolina. On paper, it was a solid job, benefits, good pay, predictable hours. In reality, it was corporate hell. Long lines, irritated customers, endless forms, and a district manager who treated us like malfunctioning robots. But on the night everything changed, I volunteered to stay late. Big mistake. It was 10 minutes to closing when she walked in. A woman, tall, thin, wrapped in a long black coat, even though the night outside was warm. Her hair fell straight down her back, jet black, almost too shiny, like it was coated in something unnatural. Her face was pale and her eyes, God, her eyes. They were gray, not regular gray, more like wet cement or storm clouds ready to burst. When she stared at you, you felt something heavy settle in your stomach. I didn't want to help her, but I was the only one still at the counter while the rest of the staff started closing duties. She glided forward, not walking, more like drifting. "Good evening," she said, her voice soft but echoing for no reason. "How can I help you?" I asked, forcing a smile. She slid an old, cracked debit card onto the desk. It wasn't even a Bank of America card. It was dark red, worn, with no visible chip. "I need to access my account," she whispered. I typed the numbers. Error. I tried again. Error. "This card doesn't exist in our system," I said gently. Her lips curled upward, but it wasn't a smile. It was more like she was baring teeth. "It exists," she said. "You just haven't looked deep enough." Before I could reply, the lights flickered. My stomach tightened. This branch never had electrical issues. "Let me try something else," I said. She leaned in closer. I could smell something faint. Cold earth, like soil after a grave is dug. I pulled up old accounts, dormant files, archived databases. Suddenly, a name appeared on my screen. Ilara Gravemont status, account closed. 1938. Balance, do not open my hands, froze. 1938? Her card looked old, but not that old. "I believe that's me," she whispered, her head tilting slowly, unnaturally. "But this account, it's been closed for decades." My voice trembled without permission. Ilara's pale fingers tapped the counter. "Reopen it." I can't. It's locked by federal." The lights cut out completely. Pitch black. "What the hell?" I reached for my phone flashlight, but before I could turn it on, the emergency lights activated. Dim red glow filling the lobby like a heartbeat. That's when I saw them. Shadows. Not mine. Not hers. Not shaped like people. They slithered across the floor, long, stretching tendrils of darkness coiling around furniture, crawling up the walls. I stumbled back. "What is going on?" I shouted. Ilara didn't move, didn't blink. "As I said," she whispered, "you must look deeper." Then she pointed at the screen. The account information started changing on its own. Numbers shifting, letters bending, the screen warping like hot metal. Then it displayed one message. Entry required. Blood signature only. My heart kicked against my ribs. "What is this? Some kind of hack?" I yelled. "It is no hack," she replied. "It is a debt, and all debts must be repaid." A sharp alarm blared, echoing through the building, but it wasn't the bank alarm. It came from the vault. "You need to open it," she said calmly, as if asking me to pour a glass of water. "No, absolutely not." She stared at me, and for the first time, something in her eyes moved, like a small figure shifting inside her pupil. "It is not a request." The shadows thickened, rising like smoke from the floors. Behind me, I heard a scream. My coworker, Hannah, who was finishing her paperwork in the office. "Hannah!" I shouted, running toward the back. But a wall of black smoke slammed the office door shut. I pulled the handle, locked from the outside. "Hannah, are you okay?" Her voice came through, muffled. "Evan, help! Something's in here!" Then silence. Cold, heavy silence. I spun around toward Alara. "What are you?" She stepped forward, coat dragging against the floor. "I am a customer," she said, "but my account was never closed, only forgotten." A booming thud shook the walls. The vault door. It felt like something was pounding to get out. Not in. Out. Alara moved toward the vault hallway, shadows following her like pets. I didn't want to follow. Every part of my body screamed to run, but the front doors were now covered in black tendrils, sealing us inside. I had no choice. The vault loomed ahead, massive, steel, and shaking under the force of whatever hit from the inside. Alara placed her hand against the door. The metal glowed red-hot under her touch. "You will open it," she commanded. I don't have the override code." "Yes, you do." And suddenly it hit me. The sealed envelope. 2 weeks earlier, corporate sent a small, red-labeled envelope to all assistant managers with the instruction, "Only open in case of system-wide failure." I thought it was related to cybersecurity updates, but Alara, she knew. I pulled the envelope from the emergency cabinet, hands trembling, and tore it open. Inside was a single slip of paper. Vault override, 6-1-6-1-9-3-8. My blood ran cold. Her account year. "You planned this," I whispered. She smiled wide and too sharp. "I do not plan, I collect." Against every instinct telling me no, I entered the override. With a hiss of escaping air, the massive vault door unlocked and slowly opened. A wave of cold air hit me. Inside was not money, not safety deposit boxes, not anything a bank should hold. Instead, it was a dark, endless corridor stretching far beyond the size of the vault. A corridor of stone, wet, ancient stone. "Whatever is that?" I whispered. "My vault," she said softly. "I stored something long ago, something that must now be withdrawn." A rumble shook the ground. From the darkness inside the vault, glowing red eyes appeared. Not two, not four, hundreds. A massive shape began crawling forward. Too many limbs, too many joints bending the wrong way. I stumbled back while Alara stepped forward, welcoming it. "My guardian," she said, "kept sealed until the account holder returned." I ran. I sprinted toward the lobby, heart tearing through my chest. "Hannah!" I shouted again, trying the office door. No answer. I slammed the fire alarm. Nothing happened. The entire building was under her control. The creature stepped from the vault. Its body scraped the walls, skin pale and stretched tight over bones. Mouths, multiple, opened across its torso, whispering in voices that sounded like drowning people. I backed away slowly. Alara stood beside it, eyes glowing now. "You opened the account," she said, pointing at me. "Now you must balance it." The creature lunged. I dove behind a desk as claws tore through the floor, where I stood seconds earlier. The lobby exploded into chaos, papers flying, furniture splintering, shadows swirling like tornadoes. I grabbed the only weapon I could find, a fire extinguisher, and slammed it against the creature's arm. It barely reacted. I ran for the side office, barricading the door with chairs. The creature pounded from outside, shaking everything. In the office, I finally found Hannah, or what was left of her. Her eyes were open, staring, her mouth frozen in a scream, her body drained, skin gray and cold, like she'd been dead for days. Tears blurred my vision. "This is my fault," I whispered. A voice whispered behind me. "Correct." Alara stood in the corner of the office, even though the door hadn't opened. "You should have ignored the envelope," she said. "What do you want from me?" She held out her old cracked debit card. "You opened my account." She smiled. "Now offer the closing payment." The office windows shattered inward. The creature pulled itself through the broken frame. I had seconds. My eyes darted around the office until they landed on the power panel, specifically the emergency branch shutdown breaker. If I pulled it, the entire building would lock down, vaults included. I sprinted for it. Elara screamed, an inhuman wail that shook the room. The creature lunged. I grabbed the breaker and yanked it down with all my strength. A blast of red emergency light flooded the bank. The vault door slammed shut automatically. The creature roared, thrashing, but the security steel began retracting like a trap, dragging it back toward the vault. Elara shrieked and tried to fight the pull, but even she couldn't resist the force sucking her and the creature backward. "You can't close it," she screamed. "You printed the code." "You shouldn't have underestimated a banker," I growled. With one final scream, she and the monster were pulled into the vault. The door slammed shut. Silence. Total silence. I collapsed to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. It was over. Or so I thought. Police arrived minutes later after neighbors reported screams. I told them there was a break-in, that the attackers escaped. I couldn't explain the vault. No one would believe me. But the real horror came the next morning. Corporate called me. "Mr. Reeves," the regional director said in a robotic voice, "we received notice that you accessed a closed archival account at 8:42 p.m. yesterday." My heart stopped. "That account is restricted," he continued, "and now that you have opened it, you are responsible for maintaining it." "What does that mean?" I whispered. "We will send you the documents," he replied. "In the meantime, expect a visit. The account holder always returns to sign." My blood froze. "You don't mean—" But the line clicked dead. A knock sounded on my apartment door. 3 slow taps. I approached hesitantly and looked through the peephole. My breath caught. She was back. Elara, smiling, holding the same old debit card. "Your bank opens at 9, she said through the door. "But my business begins now." I'm writing this quickly, hands shaking. I don't know how long the door will hold. I don't know what she wants or why she chose me. But there's one thing I do know. Never open an account that should stay closed. Never trust an old card. And never ever take the closing shift alone. She's knocking again, harder. The shadows under the door are moving. If someone finds this, don't go inside the vault on Hawthorne Avenue. Don't work the night shift. Don't volunteer. Don't be like me. She's inside. I can hear her. Story 2, I never believed a bank could feel haunted. Banks are supposed to be safe. Bright lights, cameras, alarms. The kind of place where nothing strange ever happens. But the night I agreed to help close the Bank of America branch on Redwood Street, everything I believed about safety died. My name is Aaron Malik, 27 years old, and I had joined this Bank of America branch just 6 months earlier. It was a quiet branch in a suburban area. Nothing dramatic ever happened. People deposited checks, withdrew cash, argued about overdrafts, just normal stuff. But there was one thing everyone seemed to avoid talking about: the old vault room. Employees whispered about it, but never said anything directly. The previous vault manager quit overnight. A teller transferred suddenly. The janitor refused to clean inside after 7 p.m. I thought they were superstitious. I thought people exaggerated. I was wrong. It was a Friday evening when my manager, Mr. Carson, asked me to stay late. "Aaron, I need help closing the vault. Some of the older staff already left. You're young. You've got energy," he joked. I didn't want to stay, but refusing your manager in banking is never a good idea. The sun had already set when the branch finally emptied. Only me, Mr. Carson, and the security guard, Tom, remained. At exactly 8 p.m., we checked the teller drawers, locked the ATM room, and walked toward the vault. The hallway leading to it always felt unnaturally cold, even in summer. Tonight, the temperature felt even lower. Inside the vault room, a metallic smell hit my nose. Not like coins or metal, something else. Something stale, rotting. "Do you smell that?" I whispered. Mr. Carson stiffened. "It's humidity. Ignore it." He was lying. His voice cracked. Tom, the guard, unlocked the massive vault door. The heavy steel groaned like something waking up after a long sleep. The light inside flickered. "Damn bulb," Tom muttered. But the flicker wasn't like a normal broken light. The shadows on the walls shifted unnaturally, like something moving inside them. Something alive. While counting the cash trays, I heard footsteps behind me. Slow, heavy, deliberate. I turned around. No one was there. Mr. Carson was busy checking papers. Tom was near the vault door, but the footsteps continued, circling, getting closer. "Do you guys hear that?" I whispered. Neither answered. When I looked down, my heart froze. There were footprints on the vault floor. Wet, dark, mud-like footprints. But no one had walked there. And the footprints stopped right behind me. I felt a cold breath on my neck. I jumped and spun around, but again, nothing. "Carson," I said shakily, "something is wrong." He looked at me with eyes that knew something. Something he had been hiding. "Aaron, let's just finish and leave." But the vault door suddenly slammed shut with a deafening thud. Tom cursed. "I didn't touch it." The air pressure shifted. I felt a heaviness on my chest. The vault lights flickered rapidly. When they stabilized, a dark figure stood in the corner. Tall, shadowy, featureless. But its head was tilted at an impossible angle, like it wasn't used to having a body. "Who? What is that?" I whispered. The figure stepped forward. Its steps matched the footprints I saw. Mr. Carson finally screamed, "Don't look directly at it!" But it was too late. The shadow turned its face, if you could call it a face, toward me. I saw nothing, no eyes, no mouth, just black emptiness that pulled your gaze like a vacuum. Suddenly, the air felt razor sharp. My ears rang. "What is that thing?" I shouted. Carson's voice shook violently. "It's not a thing. It's a memory, a leftover of someone who died here." My stomach dropped. "What do you mean, died here?" Carson swallowed hard. 3 years ago, a customer was trapped during closing, locked inside the vault by mistake. By the time we opened it in the morning, he didn't finish. I didn't need him to. I could smell the rot now. I could feel the fear he must have felt. Alone, pounding on the walls, screaming while the air ran out. That emotion had left a stain on the place. A stain that had shape, that lived, that hunted. The shadow moved closer, gliding instead of walking. Tom drew his gun. "Stay back!" The shadow didn't stop. The bullets passed straight through it and lodged into the vault wall. The shadow grabbed Tom's wrist. His scream echoed through the metal chamber. His skin froze instantly, turning gray, frostbitten. He fell to the floor, gasping. His breath fogged like he was in freezing weather. But the vault wasn't cold. The shadow was. Carson grabbed my arm. "We need to go. There's a manual release on the outside. Someone has to distract it." "Are you crazy?" But the shadow was already turning toward me. Carson looked me in the eyes. "Run! Now!" He shoved me, hard. I fell toward the vault door. The shadow lunged toward Carson. I heard a horrible choking sound. Then silence. Carson's body dropped. The shadow stood still for a moment. Then its head slowly turned toward me. I fumbled with the emergency latch on the door. My fingers trembled so badly I kept missing it. The shadow drifted closer. When it reached the center of the vault, every light went out. Pitch black. Total darkness. I could hear it breathing beside my ear. A cold hand brushed my neck. I screamed and threw my weight against the door. Suddenly, the latch clicked. The vault burst open. I ran out, slamming the outer door shut and pulling the emergency lock. Inside, the shadow pounded against the steel, the metal bending slightly, but it couldn't break out. I collapsed on the floor, shaking uncontrollably. When the police arrived, the vault was silent. Tom and Carson were gone. Only their security badges were found. The Redwood Street Bank of America branch closed permanently after that night. The official reason: technical malfunction in vault system, structural issues. But I know the truth. Something still lives inside that vault. Some nights when I drive past the abandoned building, I swear I see a dark shape standing in the broken window, watching, waiting, for the next time someone is foolish enough to open the vault again. Story 3, I still remember that night. The night I realized Bank of America is not just a bank. It's a place that listens, and sometimes it answers. My name is Ethan Ward, a 29-year-old office clerk who had more debt than dreams. My life was simple: a small apartment in Phoenix, a broken car radio, and a job that barely kept me afloat. I used to go to the Bank of America branch on Chandler Avenue every Friday to deposit my paycheck. It was routine, predictable. Safe, or so I thought. The trouble started when my boss delayed our salaries due to a system error, forcing me to visit the bank late at night after work. I reached the branch at 9:47 p.m., long after closing, planning to use the ATM outside. The street was quiet, too quiet. The office buildings across the road were dark, and the streetlights flickered like they were struggling to stay alive. The Bank of America building stood tall, red logo glowing like an eye watching me. As I approached the ATM, I noticed something odd. The lobby lights were on, and the glass door was unlocked. That door was never unlocked after hours. Not once in the 5 years I'd been coming here. A cold wave passed through my chest, but I still stepped inside. Because that's what desperation does. The lobby smelled like floor polish, mixed with something metallic, almost like blood. Everything was silent except for the faint hum of AC. That's when I saw him. A man standing behind the teller desk. Not a guard, not a staff member I recognized. Just a tall, bony figure wearing an old-fashioned gray suit. The type you'd see in photos from the 1950s. He was staring at the computer screen without blinking. Are you open?" I asked, my voice echoing. Slowly, very slowly, he lifted his head. His eyes weren't right. No pupils. Just pale, milky white circles staring at me. My throat tightened. He smiled, revealing teeth that were too many. "Of course," he whispered. "We are always open for you." Before I could respond, the lights flickered, and suddenly, he disappeared. Not walked away, not ran. Vanished. My heart hammered. I should have left. But something inside me pushed me deeper into the bank lobby. A faint sound reached my ears. A whisper. Coming from the vault room at the back. It sounded like hundreds of voices murmuring together. Like a crowd trapped behind steel walls. The vault door was open just a crack. Darkness spilled out like smoke. I stepped closer without meaning to. It was as if the whispering was pulling me. "Ethan!" one of the voices hissed. I froze. How did it know my name? The whispering grew louder, more aggressive, more desperate. I grabbed the door handle to shut it, but something cold grabbed my wrist from inside the vault. I yanked my hand away, stumbling back. The vault door slammed shut with a thunderous bang, and the whispering stopped. Complete silence. My breath was ragged, and every instinct told me to run. But before I reached the exit, a screen on the far left wall caught my eye. It was the CCTV monitor, still active. Footage from different angles of the bank flickered across the screens. One camera showed me standing in the lobby. Another showed the ATM. Another showed the vault door. And then, a new feed popped up. Camera 12. One I'd never seen before. Labeled Archive Room. It showed a small, windowless room, a table, stacks of old files, dust floating in the air, and someone sitting at the table with their back facing the camera. A person with long, pitch-black hair. Their shoulders shook like they were crying. Suddenly, the figure slowly turned toward the camera. And despite the footage being black and white, I could see her face clearly. It was my mother, but she passed away 3 years ago. "Mom?" I whispered, stepping closer to the screen. On the monitor, she leaned closer to the camera. Her eyes were hollow, her mouth trembling. Then she spoke. "Ethan, don't let him out." The screen glitched violently, then went dark. I was shaking uncontrollably when I pushed open the manager's office door. The room was dark except for a single red emergency bulb glowing in the ceiling. On the desk lay a thick, leather-bound notebook with the Bank of America logo. But inside, it wasn't financial records. It was incident reports, not normal incidents. Reports from decades ago. 1994, teller vanished mid-shift. Only her shoes found behind counter. 1981, customer locked inside vault. Body never recovered. 1963, unknown male entity spotted in lobby after midnight. 1952, staff reported hearing voices calling their names from inside ATM. I flipped pages faster, my hands sweating. Then I reached the final page. It had my name written in bold black ink. Ethan Ward, scheduled appearance, 9:47 p.m., Friday. My heart stopped. The time I entered the bank. The moment everything started. Someone, something knew I would be here. I slammed the notebook shut. The air suddenly turned ice cold. A shadow stretched across the carpet. I lifted my eyes, and he was standing in the doorway, the man in the gray suit. But now, his mouth was wider, his eyes darker, his skin thinner, almost transparent. "You shouldn't have looked at the records," he whispered. I backed away, but the door behind him slammed shut. "You humans come here every Friday," he hissed, stepping closer. "You deposit your fears, withdraw your regrets, and leave your souls behind." He stretched out a long, bony hand. I stumbled against the desk. "Stay away," I yelled. He smiled again. "You already belong to us." The lights flickered and the room warped around me like melting plastic. I sprinted toward the side door. The man in gray moved faster than any human, appearing in front of me in a blink. I ducked under his arm, crashing into the hallway, running blindly. The vault door rattled violently behind me. Voices screaming, pounding, calling my name. "Ethan! Ethan! Ethan!" But I kept running. I burst through the glass doors and fell onto the sidewalk, breathless. The moment my feet hit the concrete, everything inside the bank went silent. The lights shut off, the doors locked themselves, and the red logo flickered as if watching me leave. I never returned to that branch. But for weeks afterward, I received strange emails from "No reply, Bank of America." Subject lines like, "We're still open for you. Your appearance is overdue. You forgot to complete your withdrawal." I changed my email, closed my account, moved across the city. But 2 nights ago, around 9:47 p.m., someone slipped an envelope under my apartment door. Inside was a photograph, a picture of me standing inside the bank lobby, taken from camera 12, the archive room feed. In the photo, the man in the gray suit was standing right behind me, smiling, waiting. I don't go out after dark anymore, because I know Bank of America is still open for me, and someday it will collect what I owe. Story 4. I never believed a bank could be haunted. Haunted houses, abandoned hospitals, old schools, sure. But a Bank of America branch sitting quietly on a busy downtown street? Never crossed my mind. But what happened to me last winter changed every belief I ever had about what hides behind locked doors after closing hours. I was 27 when I joined the Bank of America branch on Lakewood Avenue in Charlotte, North Carolina. It wasn't my dream job, just something steady while I figured out my future. My manager, Mr. Franklin, was a strict but polite man in his 50s, always carrying a silver pen and checking his watch like the world depended on him being on time. The rest of the staff was friendly, especially Mia, another teller who worked the morning shift. But I wasn't hired for mornings. I was hired for the night audit shift. "Not many people want the night hours," Mr. Franklin had said during my interview. "Just a simple responsibility. You lock up, run the nightly balance sheets, make sure the vault logs are clean, and leave before sunrise." Sounded easy. It wasn't. My first 2 nights were smooth. I sat alone at the front desk, typing numbers, checking receipts, balancing day-end reports. At 1:12 a.m. on my second night, I heard the first strange thing. Someone whispered my name. A cold, close whisper, like someone standing right beside my ear. "Daniel." I jumped so hard I nearly knocked the calculator off the desk. I turned, expecting maybe the cleaning staff or a late shift employee, but the bank was empty. All I saw was the long row of ATMs glowing through the glass wall and my own reflection staring back, pale and confused. I told myself it was fatigue, a trick of my mind, but the whispers didn't stop. They got louder, clearer, and more frequent every night. On my fourth night, a new problem started: the CCTV monitors. At around 2:35 a.m., the hallway camera flickered, then froze. But what froze inside it was not the hallway. It was a man standing inside the vault, staring at the camera, a tall figure, black suit, blank, stretched face. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth, pale skin like wet paper. I panicked and checked the vault log. It was locked, absolutely locked. No one had opened it since 5 p.m. I ran to the vault door anyway, heart pounding. I placed my hand on the steel, cold, still sealed, untouched. When I returned to the camera room, the vault feed was normal again. Empty. But the worst part wasn't what I saw. It was what I heard. Behind me in the pitch-dark hallway. Daniel, you're late. The next day I asked Mia if anything weird had happened during her shifts. She paused, then said something I'll never forget. Have you seen account 1904 yet? No, I said. Why? It appears on the system sometimes. No name, no owner, just a number. The managers pretend they don't notice. But the account is older than the building. That night, right after midnight, the account appeared. Account 1904. Balance $0. Status active. But underneath it, a blinking message started appearing, letter by letter. Let me out. I stared at it for 30 straight seconds before the screen went black. When it lit up again, the message had changed. Turn around, I froze. Every hair on my body rose at once. Slowly, holding my breath, I turned. A figure was standing at the end of the corridor. Tall, dark, faceless, watching me. I confronted Mr. Franklin the next morning. At first he denied everything, but when I mentioned the vault figure, his face went white. He locked his office door and whispered, "This branch used to belong to the Union Chartered Bank back in the early 1900s. In 1904, the bank manager trapped a group of robbers inside the vault during a failed heist and never opened it again." I felt sick. "They died in there?" I asked. He nodded. "They were never removed. The vault was sealed permanently, and when this branch was bought decades later, the vault stayed. We don't use it, but sometimes the system picks up that old account, something tied to them. I don't know how. Why didn't anyone close the branch? Burn it down?" He swallowed. "Because every employee who tried disappeared. I wanted to quit. I swear I did. But the bank held my paycheck until month end, and I desperately needed the money. My final night of the month, the night everything spiraled out of control, started normally. But at exactly 3:03 a.m., all the lights went out. Every light, every computer, every screen. Only one door remained lit. The vault. A single overhead bulb flickered above it. Then the vault started to open, slowly. Heavy metal grinding. Decades of rust trembling. I could hear breathing inside. Multiple breaths. I hid behind the teller counter as footsteps dragged across the tiles. Slow, scraping, uneven. Something stepped out. Something that had once been human. Rotten, bent, faceless. Skin stretched like melted wax. And it spoke in a broken, layered voice. "Daniel, balance the account." I stayed frozen as it crawled toward the manager's office. Screaming, slamming, furniture breaking. Then silence. The lights flicked back on. Mr. Franklin's office door was open. He was gone. Only his silver pen lay on the floor, bent in half. The police found nothing except electrical issues, no intruders, no forced entry, no sign of Mr. Franklin. The branch closed for a week, then quietly reopened like nothing happened. But the main server still shows account 1904, and now, every night at exactly 3:03 a.m., my phone receives a notification. Bank of America. New activity on account 1904. When I open it, there's always just one message. "You're next, I haven't gone back to work." But last night, something new happened. At 3:03 a.m., the message changed. "We found you." Someone knocked on my door immediately after. Slow, heavy knocks. I didn't open it. I'm writing this now with the lights on, every lock sealed, every window shut. But if I hear my name whispered again, I don't think I'll survive the next knock. Story 5. I still remember the way the glass doors of the Bank of America branch on West Briar Avenue glowed under the flickering streetlights. I used to think the glow made the bank look safe, warm even. But that night, the same light felt like it was trying to warn me. My name is Elena Hart, and in 2022, I worked as a junior loan officer at that branch. Nothing special. Just a 28-year-old trying to keep up with rent, student loans, and a boss who counted every minute you were late, but ignored every hour you stayed after closing. I wasn't the bravest person then. Maybe I'm still not. But bravery isn't the point. Survival is. It started on the night we received the quarterly cash shipment, Every 3 months, our bank received a large armored truck delivery, usually around 9 p.m. The bank was closed by then, and only 3 staff members stayed. Me and Mark, the assistant manager. Officer Clay, the security guard. That night felt off from the beginning. The shipment was supposed to arrive at 9 o'clock, but at 8:55, the truck was already parked outside. No headlights, no engine sound, no one moving. Maybe they got here early, Mark said, annoyed. Let's just get this done. But Clay frowned. They never turned the truck off until we opened the doors. Something was wrong. We waited. 10 minutes, 15. No one stepped out. Then the knocking started. Not on the glass doors, not on the side entrance, but from inside the vault. At first it sounded like someone dropping something heavy, a dull, metallic thunk. Mark froze mid-sentence. Clay's hand went to his holster, and I felt a cold wave crawl up my neck. No one was inside the vault. We had locked it hours ago. The last person to enter was me before closing. Thunk, thunk, thunk. Then a low dragging sound, like something being pulled across concrete. Mark tried to joke. Probably some mechanical issue. These old vaults make noise. But he didn't believe it. Clay unlocked the security tablet. Motion sensors show movement. Inside the vault. I felt my stomach twist. Open it, Mark insisted. Clay hesitated but finally tapped the override code. The heavy door unlocked with a hiss. What we saw made my breath stop. The vault lights were off, but something was standing inside. A tall shape, pitch black, its edges vibrating like static. Clay raised his flashlight. The beam hit the creature, but the light bent around it, disappearing into its outline like it was swallowing it. What the hell? Clay whispered. The shadow lurched forward, not walked. Lurched, like every limb was being pulled by invisible hooks. Mark stumbled back. Shut the door! Shut the door! But Clay couldn't move. His flashlight shook in his hand. The shadow stretched upward, touching the ceiling. Then it collapsed into itself and shot across the room toward us, silent and fast. Clay fired. The bullets disappeared into the darkness as if the shadow ate them. Then something grabbed Clay by the throat. Not a hand. Something colder than ice, shaped like a hand, only in the sense that it could crush. Clay gasped, his legs kicking. His face went blue. Help him! I screamed. Mark ran away, toward the break room. I grabbed a metal filing tray and swung at the shadow. The tray passed right through it, but the shadow flinched, just slightly as if irritated, as if aware. The lights in the bank flickered violently, monitors crackled, ATMs rebooted. Every screen showed the same message. Balance insufficient. Then the images shifted to faces. Ours. My face. Clay's. Mark's. Each with empty eyes and mouths open in a silent scream. Clay fell to the floor, unconscious or dead. I couldn't tell. The shadow turned toward me. I did the only thing I could. I ran. I sprinted toward the back hallway, nearly slipping on the polished floor. But the shadow didn't chase me. Not physically. My shadow, the one cast by the hallway light, began moving on its own, stretching, crawling toward me. I screamed and stumbled into the stairwell. I found Mark hiding in the storage closet, shaking, sweating. It's here for the money, he whispered. I know it sounds insane, but I've seen something like this before. What are you talking about? He swallowed hard. 3 years ago, at another branch I worked at, something happened during a cash transport. The camera footage was wiped. The crew disappeared. They found the vault door melted. Melted? Mark nodded. Corporate doesn't talk about it, but there's a rumor. Something follows money, large amounts of it, like it's attracted. I stared. And you didn't think to tell us? I didn't believe it was real. A sudden scream echoed from the lobby. Clay's voice, but twisted, distorted, wrong. The vault slammed shut by itself. Something heavy banged inside it. Mark's lips trembled. We need to get out, now. We ran down the stairwell, but when we reached the emergency exit, the push bar wouldn't move. The metal looked melted, like something had burned through it. A deep rumbling sound grew behind us. We turned. The shadow was crawling down the stairs, limbs bending backward like broken branches. What does it want? I cried. Mark whispered, it wants to replace something. It takes the living and leaves behind shadows, echoes. We backed up the stairs. Every light went out. Darkness filled the stairwell, moving, breathing. I grabbed Mark's arm. The generator room. It has its own exit. He nodded and we sprinted. As we reached the hallway, someone stepped out. Clay. But his movements were slow, unnatural. His eyes were pitch black. His shadow was twice his size, twitching violently on the floor. Clay, I whispered. He opened his mouth. A voice came out, but not his. A deep, layered, echoing voice. Insufficient balance. Then Clay lunged at us. Mark shoved him aside. We ran into the generator room and locked the door. Clay slammed into it repeatedly, each hit dimming the lights. We can't keep this door closed, Mark said. We need to cut the power to the whole bank. If it travels through electricity, we cut its path. I stared at the breakers. If we do that, we'll be in complete darkness. Mark swallowed. Darkness is better than letting it use the circuits to reach us. The door cracked behind us. I flipped the main switch. Everything went dark. The banging stopped. The silence was worse. I could hear breathing, but it wasn't Mark's. Something was in the room with us. A whisper brushed my ear. Balance, insufficient. I swung my phone's flashlight on. Mark was gone. Gone. In his place was a dark stain on the floor, like a shadow burned into the concrete, and standing behind it was the creature, now shaped like Mark, but hollow, flickering. I backed toward the emergency vent grill and kicked it open. It was small, but I could squeeze through. The creature moved closer, its voice glitching. You! Owe! More! I crawled inside the vent, scraping my knees, my elbows. The shadow reached in after me, stretching its arm impossibly long. For a moment, its fingers brushed my ankle, cold enough to burn. I kicked, screamed, crawled until I saw moonlight at the end of the vent. I burst out into the parking lot, rolled onto the pavement, and looked back. The bank lights flickered once, twice. Then everything went still. Police came, investigators, corporate. They found no bodies, no damage inside except a few melted metal frames. They said Clay and Mark left unexpectedly. They said the vault malfunction was a data glitch. They said I was emotionally distressed, but they didn't see the security footage I saw. One frame, just one, hadn't been deleted. It showed the vault. It showed the shadow. And behind it, Clay and Mark, both standing, both smiling, eyes black, shadows stretching on the floor like living things. I quit the job, moved cities, never stepped into a bank at night again. But some nights when I check my balance on my phone, the app freezes for a second. And instead of numbers, I see the same message again. Balance insufficient. When that happens, I turn off my phone and sleep with the lights on, because I know it's still looking for me. Story 6. I never believed the rumors about banks being haunted. Ghost stories belong to abandoned houses, lonely highways, and old hotels, not corporate buildings with polished floors and bulletproof glass. But on the night of November 18th, inside a quiet Bank of America branch in downtown Charlotte, I learned that some doors should never be opened, and some vaults never disturbed. My name is Ethan Walker, and at the time I worked as a night security officer. Good pay, stable hours, and a building filled with cameras. It felt like the safest job in the world, or at least that's what I thought. My shift started at 10 p.m. The branch was huge. 2 floors, long halls, dozens of offices, and a large walk-in vault deep inside. I had worked there for 3 months and nothing unusual had ever happened. But that night the air felt heavy, like the building was holding its breath. Around 11:40 p.m., while checking cameras in the control room, I noticed something strange. Camera 12, vault hallway. A shadow moved. Not a reflection, not a glitch. Something walked across the hallway. I leaned closer. The hallway should have been empty. The cleaning staff had left an hour ago. I rewound the footage. There it was again. A tall shape, almost human, but wrong, distorted, like it was stretched. My stomach tightened. Was someone inside the building? I grabbed my flashlight and walked toward the vault hallway. The hallway was freezing. My breath fogged in the air. which made no sense. The AC shut off after 9 p.m. I took slow steps forward. Tap, tap, tap. My footsteps echoed, but something else echoed too. A whisper, soft dragging, like someone breathing words directly into my ear. Ethan, I froze. No one should know my name. I was alone. I raised my flashlight, and the beam flickered. The lights above me buzzed, dimming. Then the whisper came again. You opened it, didn't you? My skin prickled. I didn't even know what that meant. Before I could move, a loud metallic clang echoed from the vault room. I jumped. Someone, or something, was inside. I reached the vault entrance and my heart sank. The vault door, a massive circular door weighing thousands of pounds, was open. Impossible. It locked automatically every night at 8 p.m. The manager had the only override code. Hello, I called out. No answer. I slowly stepped inside. The vault smelled like cold metal and something else. Something damp. Rows of safe deposit boxes lined the walls like little metal graves. And on the floor, something scratched into the concrete caught my eye. A message written with fingernails, don't open. Box 319. A shiver crawled down my back. Box 319 was half open, like someone had recently forced it. Inside was a small black envelope. Against every instinct, I pulled it out. It was ice cold. The envelope had no seal, no name, no writing, just pitch black paper. When I opened it, a single Polaroid photograph slid out. My chest tightened. The picture showed the Bank of America vault room, but I was standing in it. Same clothes, same flashlight, same face, except in the photo, someone tall and faceless stood behind me. A shadow figure, hand resting on my shoulder. I spun around. Nothing behind me, but the air grew colder, heavy, as if something invisible stood inches away. A faint clicking sound came from the right side of the vault. The safe deposit boxes were unlocking. 1, 2, 3. Doors slowly creaked open on their own. Clink, clink, clink. I stepped back. Then a voice echoed from the far end. Ethan, you shouldn't have come here. A figure stepped from behind the rows of deposit boxes. A man, pale, disoriented, wearing an old Bank of America badge covered in dust. Name, Samuel Crane, Senior Vault Manager. But Samuel had died 5 years ago. I remembered his story. He disappeared inside the branch during a night audit. No body was ever found. Everyone assumed he ran away with stolen cash. But here he was, or what used to be him. What happened to you? I whispered. His eyes were hollow, black like ink. They opened the wrong box, he whispered, and it wanted more. What wanted more? He pointed at box 319. The thing you just woke up. My heart dropped. Before I could speak, Samuel's head snapped sideways, as if yanked by an invisible force, and his body was dragged into the darkness. His screams echoed through the vault. Then silence. I backed away, terrified. The temperature dropped instantly. Frost formed on the metal walls. My flashlight flickered violently. Then the lights shut off completely. I stood in total darkness. Something moved, slowly, deliberately. A deep growling breath crawled across the vault. I raised my flashlight again, praying it worked. The beam sputtered, then turned on, and I saw it. A tall, distorted figure emerging from the open safe box, like a shadow peeled off the wall. Long limbs, hollow eyes, a jaw that stretched far beyond human shape. It crawled toward me, its fingers scraping the concrete, leaving black markings that hissed like acid. I stumbled back, but the vault door slammed shut behind me. I was trapped. The creature whispered, "You opened my door. Now open yours." The vault lights burst into a sickly red glow. The creature lunged. Instinct took over. I sprinted toward the alarm panel near the center of the vault. The creature's claws scraped the floor behind me, getting closer. I slammed the emergency panic alarm. A thunderous alarm blared through the building. The creature shrieked, covering its ears. The vault door began unlocking automatically. Emergency protocol. I had only seconds. As the door cracked open, I dove through the gap. The creature's hand slashed across my back, burning like fire. But I made it out. The door slammed shut behind me, trapping the thing inside. I collapsed on the hallway floor, gasping. Security backup arrived minutes later. But when they checked the vault, it was empty. Box 319 was sealed shut. No scratches on the floor, no sign of Samuel Crane. Like nothing had happened, except the mark burned into my back. A black handprint. It hasn't faded. I quit the job the next morning, but the nightmares didn't stop. Every night I hear whispering. Every night I see that creature crawling out of the vault again. And 3 days ago, Box 319 was mysteriously flagged in national banking logs as recently accessed by my ID number. I haven't been inside that building since the night I barely escaped, but something wants me to return. Something that should never have been awakened. If you ever walk into a Bank of America branch and feel the air grow colder, if you hear a whisper calling your name, leave immediately. Some vaults are never supposed to open. Some doors never close. Story 7. I never believed banks could be haunted. Creepy? Maybe. Too quiet? Absolutely, but haunted, no chance. That changed on the night I took the closing shift at the Bank of America branch in Riverside Point, a place that had become my second home ever since I joined as an assistant manager 6 months earlier. I loved the routine, counting drawers, locking cabinets, filling logs. It was predictable, safe, boring even. But monsters love boring places because no one expects them there. The evening started normally until the man walked in, tall, pale, wearing a faded black suit that looked older than the building itself. He didn't blink, not once. And when he finally spoke, his voice rasped like someone who hadn't used it in years. I need access to my safe deposit box. Of course, I said politely. Do you have your key? He slowly slid a key across the counter. Cold, heavy, dark metal, not the gold-colored keys we issued. We don't use this, I began, but the computer beeped before I even typed his name. The system unlocked a profile I'd never seen. Box 777. Owner, Gabriel Morrow. Status, active last access. December 2nd, 1981. 44 years ago, before the branch even existed. My stomach tightened. Something was wrong. Right this way, sir, I whispered, my professionalism fighting my instinct to run. Our vault always smells like cold steel and ink. That night it smelled like the inside of an abandoned house, dust, damp wood, and something faintly rotten. The man followed silently. No footsteps, not even a floor vibration. When I pulled the vault door open, the lights flickered, humming like they were being choked. Your box is on the far wall, I said. He didn't move. Instead, he looked at me with hollow eyes. Could you open it for me? We can't. Customers must be present. It's not your rules that matter, he whispered. It's his. Who? I asked. He just smiled. Thin, cracked, wrong. The one inside. Against every instinct, I walked to box 777. I inserted his key. It didn't feel like metal. It felt warm, like skin. The lock clicked. The lights died. Pitch black. I gasped and stumbled back. My phone light flicked on. The man was gone. No footsteps. No sound. Just gone. The vault felt smaller. Temperature dropping. My breath puffed white. I turned the light toward the open box. Inside was a single item. A ledger book, dark red, with my name scratched on the cover. Ethan Gray, account closed. My heart stopped. I never closed an account. I'd been working here for only 6 months. I touched the cover. A whisper slithered into my ear. He's coming. I bolted out of the vault, slamming the door behind me. The branch lights were dim, humming strangely. The entire bank looked stretched, shadows longer than normal, like the building itself was breathing. I ran toward the front desk. That's when I heard footsteps. Slow, heavy, dragging. I turned. A tall figure, wearing the same black suit as the man earlier, stood at the end of the hallway. But this wasn't him. This figure was twisted, head leaning to one side like its neck had snapped. Arms too long, eyes black and hollow. Its voice scraped the air. Return the book. My hands trembled as I clutched the ledger. I, I didn't take anything. I just, return what isn't yours. The creature lunged. I sprinted through the lobby, leaping over chairs and desks as the thing's footsteps thundered behind me. My keys rattled in my pocket. One of them could lock the emergency door. The lights flickered violently. Every poster on the wall showed the same face, the twisted creatures, staring at me. I reached the emergency exit, locked. I jammed the key in. My fingers shook too hard. The key slipped. Hot breath touched my neck. I swung around. Nothing. The creature was suddenly across the room, crawling onto the counter like a spider. Its voice echoed from everywhere. You opened the box. You accepted the ledger. Now you belong to the vault. Desperate, I opened the ledger. The pages flipped on their own. Inside, written in ink darker than blood, were hundreds of names, all ending with the same note. Soul collected, claimed by the vault. My eyes snapped to the last page. It was blank, except for a faint outline. Letters slowly appeared on the paper, writing themselves. Ethan Gray, pending. The creature crawled closer, smile widening. This branch feeds the vault, it hissed. Every few decades, a keeper is chosen. Tonight, it's your turn. No, I screamed, slamming the ledger shut. I dashed toward the teller cabinets. Inside one drawer was an old maintenance hatch that led to the back alley. The creature shrieked and the sprinklers burst, spraying freezing water that smelled like rust and decay. I yanked the hatch open and crawled inside. Behind me, claws scraped metal. The tunnel was narrow and dark, but ahead, a faint rectangle of moonlight. I pushed myself forward and burst out into the alley, collapsing onto cold concrete. The moment I escaped the building, the sound stopped. No footsteps, no breathing, nothing. The bank sat silently behind me like a sleeping animal. I didn't go back. The next morning, the manager called. Ethan, why did you leave the branch unlocked last night? Unlocked? I locked everything. No, you didn't, he said. And we found something in the vault. My stomach twisted. What? A ledger. He paused. Your name is written in it. I hung up. I quit the job that same hour, but the real horror came later that night, when I woke up to a sound outside my bedroom window, dragging footsteps, and a whisper. Your account is still pending. Story 8, I was 28, working as an assistant account manager at the branch. Most people assume banking was calm and predictable, but any employee could tell you the truth. It was chaos with paperwork. That night, my manager, Calvin, stopped me while I was packing up. Hey, Rachel, he said, rubbing his temples. Corporate wants the audit done by tomorrow morning. Think you can stay late? I should have said no. I should have gone home. But rent in my city punched harder than a heavyweight boxer. Yeah, I can do it, I sighed. By 9:45 p.m., the security guard locked the front glass doors and left. It was just me, the hum of old fluorescent lights and rows of silent cubicles. The branch felt different at night, like the air itself was holding its breath. Around 10:12 p.m., as I was going through loan files, I heard it. A knock, soft, almost polite. Impossible. The guard had locked the doors. I ignored it until I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. I walked to the front foyer. The street was dark except for a single flickering streetlight. At first, I didn't see anyone. Then he stepped into the light. A man in an old charcoal suit, soaked from the light drizzle outside. His skin was pale, like printer paper pale, and his eyes were black, completely black. Not dark brown, not dilated pupils, just pure, bottomless black. He lifted a small leather bank ledger and tapped it against the glass. I need help, he mouthed. Every instinct in me screamed no. But I also remembered that corporate had recently implemented a 24-hour emergency access policy for high-value clients. It required us to assist if asked. Against my better judgment, I unlocked the door. The moment he stepped in, the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Sir, we're closed, I said, trying to sound firm. Why don't you come back tomorrow morning? He placed the old leather ledger on the desk between us. I need to close my account, he whispered. His voice sounded wrong, like two voices speaking at once, but slightly out of sync. What's your name, I asked. He slid a faded driver's license toward me. The picture on it looked maybe 50 years old. The name read, Harold T. Whitmore, date of birth, 1904. That can't be right. I forced a small laugh. Is this a joke? He stared at me with those pitch-black eyes. My account must be closed, he repeated softly. I typed his name into the internal Bank of America system and froze. Account found. Opened. September 16th, 1931. Status, active balance, $0. Warning, do not close. An internal note appeared in red. This account is linked to irregular activity. Manual closure requires level 5 authorization. But there was no such thing as level 5 authorization. That wasn't even a banking term. I swallowed hard. Sir, your account has a restriction. I can't close it tonight. Harold leaned forward, his breath icy against my cheek. You must. Every fluorescent bulb in the branch flickered, then went dark. The computer shut off. The alarm panels died. The air turned heavy, like something was draining the oxygen. I felt something move behind me. Not footsteps, not breath, just presence. Sir, please wait here, I whispered, trying not to panic. I just need to check the main breaker. I stepped into the hallway. The emergency lights cast a dim red glow. Shadows looked deeper, stretched longer than they should. When I returned to the front lobby, Harold was gone, but his ledger was still there. I opened it. My breath caught. Inside were handwritten entries. Dozens, hundreds. Each line was the same. Transferred, one soul. All in the same handwriting. All dated decades apart. The most recent entry was tonight's date. A loud metallic groan echoed from the back of the bank. The vault. I should have run. I should have called the police. But I was frozen, drawn toward the sound like gravity itself was pulling me. The vault door, massive steel, impossible to open without codes, was cracked open an inch. Breathing trembled out of me. No! No, no, no! I pushed it slightly wider. Inside the pitch-black vault, I saw movement. Not a person, not an animal. Dozens of shadowy hands pressed against the interior walls, as if reaching out from behind a thin layer of darkness. Whispers curled through the air. Close the account. Close the account. Close the account. I stumbled backward. This isn't real. This isn't real. Then I felt icy fingers wrap around my wrist. Harold stood behind me again, his face inches from mine. You're the banker, he murmured. Finish the transaction. What is this? I gasped. Who are you? He blinked slowly, unnaturally. A long time ago, he whispered, I made a deposit with your bank. A special one. I shook my head, trembling. Banks don't take souls. Your bank does, he said. It always has. Energy, life, debt. Call it what you like. But the transaction must be honored. I backed away, heart pounding. Why me? Because, he said softly, you're the last active banker in the building. Someone must manage the account. He placed a bony hand on my shoulder. Close it and take my place. My stomach dropped. Your place. The custodian, he said. The keeper. Every account must have one. The vault hands began to claw against the walls harder, whispering louder. The floor vibrated. I realized the truth. If I closed his account, I'd be trapped here. Forever. I won't, I whispered. The lights exploded back on. Harold's face twisted, like his skin didn't fit his skull. And he lunged. I sprinted across cubicles, knocking over chairs and printers. My breath echoed in sharp gasps. Behind me, his steps didn't sound like footsteps. They sounded like shifting paper, like ledger pages fluttering in a storm. I reached the emergency exit and slammed the bar. It didn't move. The sign above it flickered. Access requires account closure. I screamed in frustration, banging on the door. Harold appeared slowly at the end of the hallway, tilting his head like a bird studying prey. You cannot leave, he rasped. Not until the debt is settled. I grabbed a metal letter opener from a desk, not that it would help, and backed away. Stay away from me. He stepped closer. Then I remembered the ledger. Every account needed signatures. approvals, records. If I could manipulate it, I sprinted to the front desk. Harold glided after me, faster now. I snatched the ledger and flipped to the last page. A blank line waited at the bottom. Custodian transfer. My name began forming itself in faint ink. No! I screamed and grabbed a pen. I scribbled one word across the line. Void. The entire building shook. The vault wailed, a sound like hundreds of voices crying out at once. The fluorescent lights shattered overhead, raining down sparks. Harold shrieked, grabbing his head as dark smoke poured from his mouth and eyes. You cannot void a soul debt, he howled. Yes, I choked out, but I can void your ledger. The pages of the book turned white, burning from the edges until nothing remained but ash. The shadows in the vault screamed, and then dissolved like fog under sunlight. Harold collapsed to the floor, his form unraveling into dust that scattered across the tiles. Everything went silent. The lights blinked back to normal. The air warmed. The vault creaked shut. I walked outside into the dawn, traumatized, shaking, but alive. The branch manager arrived an hour later. Rachel? He asked, confused. You stayed all night. I didn't answer. I couldn't. He unlocked the branch, walked to his office, and booted up the system. I stood frozen as his face drained of color. Rachel? He whispered. Did you open a new account last night? I felt ice in my veins. On the screen was a new account. Account holder, Rachel D. Hale. Opened today, balance 0.00 status, active. Note, do not close. Custodian, required. My heart stopped. On the desk beside his keyboard lay a brand new leather ledger, identical to Harold's. Its first blank line read, Custodian transfer, Rachel D. Hale. I turned and walked out of the branch without saying a word. But every night since, I hear a knock, soft, polite, persistent, and I know one day I'll have to answer it, because you can void a page, but you can't void a debt owed to the bank. Not this bank, not ever.